Hello, everyone, and welcome to CDCT Live. I'm Jason Rader. I'll be your host today as we tackle the topic of why managed services. With me today, we've got a couple of guys who are going to help us get through this topic. We've got Stephen Walters, who's a senior manager in charge of offering development and managed services. And we have Phil Okonski, director of engineering services, here with me at CDCT. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hey.
So thank you both for joining me as we talk about the why managed services topic. And, I actually wanted to kind of talk a little bit before we get started about our poll. Thanks for you guys out there who are helping us kind of frame the content around the things that you care about the most. And the question that we asked the last time was, what is the top benefit of managed services? And the results, the way that they skewed were IT staff productivity, 78% of folks voted for that. Cost control 11 and increased security 11. So it sounds like the IT staff productivity was the way that everybody was slanting related to that. So if we could kind of highlight those aspects, and I know based on what we're going to talk about, we'll do that moving forward. So for the uninitiated, and we always like to kind of start off of kind of a level set when we get going here. When we're talking about managed services, what are we talking about?
I can start off. Hello, everyone. Managed services can sometimes be a little ubiquitous when it comes to similar to the cloud. When it comes to defining it, I've heard people talk about it from a pure I'm outsourcing everything to IT, or I'm also seeing on the other end of the spectrum of I'm managing a device, I'm managing a printer, I'm managing a switch or a firewall, and everything in between. What we typically see is really talking about operational outcomes, like you said, IT staff productivity, and finding a different way to operate the complex infrastructure and both cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, that a lot of clients are trying to figure out how to do that more effectively with higher service levels and at lower cost, while still improving the client experience and enable them to grow revenue.
Nice. Stephen, anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Phil, to echo something you just said, and I think this is where we've seen a shift through the years, right? And you go back to, you described, I have a device, it's a network switch, it's a server, and I want to attach some sort of managed service to that. We've really moved into that outcomes-based arena, right? Where you're looking for more than just keeping the lights on. You're really looking for a business outcome. And back to the survey there, Jason, it really is around providing those outcomes in order to enable the IT staff of our clients to be more productive, to focus on the business, to do things that are really strategic to that business while getting these business outcomes, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and we've all been doing this for a long time. I mean, I think we typically think of an organization as having, X amount of staff, and this usually frees up that staff to be able to do those things that they consider more strategic for their organization. And that's kind of the standard mantra that we typically apply. But as things have got more complex, and we've got cloud and SD-WAN and all of the things that kind of get into the mix these days, how are we seeing folks kind of change the way that they're consuming? Or, besides, I mean, is it, I guess maybe that's the whole business outcomes angle that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that I see really two things there. The first is that as new technology comes along and clients look to take advantage of that new technology, you could have examples like cloud services. You could have another example might be SD-WAN technology, right? It's okay. Sort of traditional networking, but it's this extra stuff on top. And they start to look at their staff. They start to look at training. They start to look at how do I bring an IT group along with this new technology. It's extremely challenging. You can't take them out of the day to day and train up on a new solution. So it starts to be coupled together during the architecture and assessment phase. And it's no longer just, hey, we've implemented this new technology. Now, what are we going to do with operations, right? You have to think about this stuff early, because when you flip that switch and you go live, you've got to be ready to support the business. It's extremely challenging. it's, I would say that it's challenging for any organization to keep up with the training requirements, but these new technologies are not just incremental adds to a skill set. And sometimes it's learning a completely new platform, completely new way to do things. So that's very much a challenge for the clients. And then the second thing that comes to mind is that there are new models for even how you consume the technology, right? And I know we're going to get deeper into this topic with as a service, but you start to think about it kind of all inclusive, right? That you have the technology, the capability, and the wrapper around that to actually manage it to the business outcome that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and that was the as a service model that we're talking about. I mean, and when you say that, qualify that. What do we mean when we say that?
Yeah, no, it's a deep topic. It's definitely something that years ago we heard about, right? There were maybe some options out there in the industry. It's come on very strong in the past year or two. So what that means is really that you can consume a technology that you do have the option to go with the traditional model. You can just go purchase, let's use SD-WAN. You could go purchase the SD-WAN solution. You could implement it, and then you could try to operate it yourself or hire a managed services organization to manage that. The alternative is that you start to not really care, per se, about the underlying technology. You're really actually also buying the technology with the outcome in mind. And if it provides these features, you may not care what it is under the covers, right? You're buying the technology. It's usually on a consumption or subscription basis. It's very predictable pricing. And it also comes with a set of services that wrap around it that provides the response and the care and feeding of the environment and all of those things included.
No, that flexibility to me is pretty exciting, because I think when we think about managed services, or at least me, is that old school method of it's all or nothing kind of thing. Is it's everything or I've got to augment my staff and allocate all of these things. But this is like, especially in things like SD-WAN, newer tech, there's a learning curve. Even if I buy the best of breed technology, there's operationalizing that within my organization. There's going to be all of the ins and outs associated with that. And being able to leverage a new tech like SD-WAN and all the benefits that has to my organization without burdening my folks who are already probably hitting their max on the things that they're already doing. That sounds really cool. And then when we get to things like public cloud, I mean, features of that, and it's not everything in the public cloud. It's those features of the public cloud that we can leverage as well. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and we talk about cloud, like which cloud, what clouds are we talking about here?
There's a lot of clouds, right?
He's got a cloud and he's got a cloud.
Well, what we've seen, I mean, obviously everyone understands. I mean, there's the big hyperscaler clouds, right? We know those. There's I would call it the traditional infrastructure as a service. That is absolutely still a viable option. Many of our clients look to that. It's think about the options in that IaaS space. You can have dedicated resources. Maybe you're a little bit more in the know on where it's located, how it's maintained, what it is under the covers, right? It's sort of a good fit for many applications that you're looking to have consistency, maybe predictable billing, maybe maybe your application is not built cloud native, those types of things, right? So it's still a very viable option that we see a lot of clients using. And then you have these new as a service options, which really it brings the cloud buying experience to the client's data center on-prem is what it really seeks to do. So you start to think about, client doesn't own the hardware, client is not responsible for maintaining the hardware. All of those things start to come into the client facility, and you start to think it really is a great fit for many applications. Many of our clients have security concerns, or maybe they just need the technology close to the application stack as it sits. There's many reasons for selecting these options. But what it's really done is bring the cloud buying experience. You have the full range. You can bring it into your own facility, or you can go full public cloud, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Phil, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I hear from the executives and what we've been sort of circling around is really simplification. The ability to simplify, how do I purchase it, or how do I consume it, how do I manage it, and how do I make sure that I'm ways to optimize it. Most clients, or most of us who've been in the IT industry, you typically have to buy things in chunks, or you have to hire people in units of people, and the ability to scale and to drive speed and drive innovation is a lot of the themes we're hearing from leaders. To how do I solve for that while still being focused on the business, and trying to translate these different programs, public cloud capabilities. How do I simplify my network? All of these things are challenges that we're finding clients coming to us going, how do I solve that? Not only as a solution, but also as a long-term operational program.
No, and from the whole as a service, and you talked about IaaS a little bit. I mean, I think, one of the complexities of embracing something like that from a public cloud perspective is, the governance that needs to go around that, to have your own users kind of executing that. You mentioned security, Steve. There's all of those things, from a model of doing a managed services model. Those things are considered but the organizations that's providing those services, those things are already considered and kind of dealt with, whereas an organization could potentially get, and we've seen that before, where folks get all excited about the capabilities of consuming these things without any governance or without the appropriate security aspects. So, I'd never even thought about, I typically think about managed services on the back end of kind of tightening things up after we've got them defined and developed them. But it sounds like this is even a more robust way to go after those things and to get in it quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're seeing as well. And I just go back to the model I described, where you select a product, you implement it, right? And then you go, how are we going to do it? And then you try to add managed services onto it. Governance is a very interesting topic. And when you start to use services that that are built on a consumption model, what does that mean? It means that you could have an IT resource that says, hey, I need to add some disk space to this application. We need to store more files. They click, and there you go. And then the bill comes, right? And so having governance built around those types of things becomes very, very important. And really what managed services seeks to do in this space is really come with a set of packaged services that do just that, right? You want to give clients the ability to put in a certain level maybe of approval process that they didn't have to think about before. Think about if you had, let's talk about storage as a service. So you would buy, I need a petabyte of storage. It needs to have this level of performance. You go make the purchase, you sit it on the floor, go to town. Whatever you want to do, the price does not change, right? It's a fixed price. But you take that same solution and you move it to a consumption model. It feels like the normal thing. It's an array. It's sitting on the floor. But guess what? You don't own it, and you're paying for it on a consumption model. So what happens in those scenarios is that vendors, what do? They put more capacity on the floor than you're subscribing to as your baseline. So that gives you the ability to burst. It's a great capability, because then when you want to burst, it's instantly right there for you. But guess what? The bill comes along with it. So it's great, and you expect that, but having some controls built into that say, hey, now we need more space. Let's add this layer of approval so that it can go to the director for financial approval, whatever the case may be. We can build in those controls, and clients love it. They want the flexible capability. They want the consumption model, and then helping them building some controls and governance into it is a great win all the way around, right?
Yeah, I would add the challenge that we find our clients' leadership trying to solve is a lot of clients have matured to some varying degrees a capacity management model. I have this much capacity. How do I best use it? Now I've got an additional type of, to Stephen's point, a governance model around consumption and optimization. Am I using too much? Am I not using enough? Is it being adopted? Those are different type of questions that need to be augmented to the overall capacity and consumption of an IT organization. And for organizations to dive into that maturity, it can be challenging. And so, clients again are coming to managed services providers and going, how do I quickly drive that at maturity and get the answers I need so I can make business decisions? It's a different paradigm that a lot of our clients are trying to navigate through these through the bevy of options available to them.
And somebody mentioned in the comments, thanks everyone, from a data sovereignty perspective, what do you guys have any comments related to that when we're doing like storage as a service or something along those lines?
Yeah.
Or just that it's tricky.
It's tricky. I guess the way I would answer that is that there are more choices than ever before.
Right.
And I think that's great for the industry, right? And I think if you go back years, you don't even have to go back years. The notion was everything's going to the public cloud. The data center's dead. No one's going to buy this stuff anymore. And the fact is that's just not true, right? And so you have to really understand what is the data, what does this data mean to the business? Where does it live? How do you protect it? And the layers upon layers of decisions and things that you need to understand to make these choices, it just grows by the day. But the great news is that the options really are broader and better than they have ever been, right? And so you don't have to think, well, if I want the storage array to live in my colo facility and I want it to be handled this way for this application, your options are not limited to what they used to be. And you don't have to go back and say, oh, well, now I've got to go hire storage engineers again, and I've got to put all this monitoring in place, and I have to deal with provisioning. Like, you really don't have to do that. And you don't have to do it with the full range of managed services that you wrap around these. And that's where, there's a lot of work, right, that goes into building that full solution. Our vendor partners come to us and say, we have a new model. You can buy compute resources, you can buy network resources, you can buy storage resources, and we have a model to do that now. They maintain ownership of the gear. They have built-in models for providing the bursting capabilities, but they don't provide the managed services wrapper. Really, that's where we come in. That's where a managed services provider can put their own spin on the offering, right? And there's a lot of work that goes into that. And so you start to think about the benefits of not buying a point solution where, well, it's just storage. You start to add in the managed services capabilities across that. Think about one provider that can do public cloud, IaaS, as a service models, all under one umbrella, right?
No, and I think that really makes it easy. Phil?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I think what I've seen is there's a layer of familiarity that is driving a lot of activity around two areas. One is you got to have a deep architectural foundation, understanding your technical and business requirements and translating it into the solutions that are available. So you need that familiarity with the business, with your applications, with your security and policy requirements to drive what do I need from a solution. And the second piece is you need partners or knowledge around the familiarity of all the different programs and options that are out there. So you can marry those two together into the right solution. And if you don't have both sides of that coin, you may sell yourself short, or you may find that the solution you're getting to isn't aligned to what the business needs. And so finding that nexus between those two areas is heavily burdensome for our clients, and a lot of the conversations we're having with people around how do I marry those two pieces of information together.
Yeah, and I think, that kind of goes for just about everything, right? It's the more you know about the solution that you need, the more you know about yourself is the way better outcome you're going to get when you actually make that selection. So, I mean, there's if you want ultimate inflexibility, well, you're going to have to give up something on this side, it's the kind of the ebb and flow of business, right? But I do think one of the things that's really, that you'd mentioned, Stephen, is that you can adopt some technology rapidly in your organization and then potentially operationalize that if you understand exactly what your roadmap looks like, what you need, and you can engage somebody to make it very easy for you and adopt that. And then on the back end, maybe on the other side of that is really the operational aspects, because I know, your teams are really good at operationalizing this tech and doing it super well, and the automation aspects and all of those things. I've heard it said before, excuse me, is that, it's in our best interest to make things streamlined, to operationalize the tech, to do it well, because we get to leverage that investment that we put into doing that over and over and over with every client. Whereas a single client, if they made this thing high speed, low drag, made it perfect for the set that they have right now, they can only monetize that one time. And then when the tech changes, they've got to redo it all over again, potentially. And I think that's a huge, so I'd love for you guys to kind of talk a little bit about, maybe give some examples with clients, that whole operational burden aspect of running the tech, even if you're capable of doing it, and how managed services is helping with that.
Yeah, I mean, just because you can do it does not mean you should do it, right?
True.
So I think that you really nailed it when you said you can either go build these processes and refine your tools and tweak your configurations and build your workflows. You can go do that for one technology once for one company, right? But for us, it's a totally different equation. And we want those things because they're expected, but also because it makes us more efficient. It makes the services more relevant. We can price them better, like all of those things. Like, it matters to us as a managed services provider in a different way, right? And so what does that mean? It means we're willing to invest time, resources. We look at tools very differently. The tendency if you're in an IT organization, you go, hey, I love that tool. It does all these things. You go buy the tool, you put it in, and you configure some things, right? Maybe it's monitoring and it's going to do all this great stuff for you. Well, from a managed services provider perspective, we view things as a platform. And so we have a managed services platform. It's made up of many components, right? And we really are seeking to take, in most cases, off the shelf products, and in some cases, IP. We have things that we build, and we have off the shelf products, and we put those together, build the platform, and we're taking the best of things and integrating them into our processes, right? And that's just a very different approach, very different. And again, it goes to the reasons for us to do it more efficient. We do it over and over and over for many, many clients. And so when we make a tweak and we get better at something, let's say that we have a great request catalog, and it has, it's very efficient and clients like it. That has a much bigger impact on our business, our efficiency, which in turn means that we're providing really great service to the client and they love it, right? So when we do that once, maybe it hits hundreds of clients, right? And so that is just a very different equation.
Gotcha. What are clients? Go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say, I would say also, our clients are shifting their demand on us from, it used to be service levels. Are you hitting your service levels? That's now foundational. That's just table stakes. if you're not doing that, then you're not doing managed services. The expectation of the marketplace is, you're going to do that. But the conversation quickly pivots to, how are you going to scale? How are you going to do things faster for us? How can you do more for the same or less? So the things that they demand of their teams, they're asking of their providers to do the same. It is an operational cost like a managed services. It can definitely scale, but with scale comes efficiency, and our clients are asking for that type of efficiency back to their bottom line. To go back to the second component of the survey is lowering cost. They want to shift their resources to focus on the value, but they also want to make sure, as they're integrating new sites, as they're adding new applications, as all those demands are happening in the business, that means their business, their operations, it has to grow with it. And they're asking our partners, their operational partners, how do you do more within the bounds of what we've done in the contract? I have those conversations all the time. And to everyone's point here, we can do that with scale. And good managed services providers can do that with scale, because you don't create a thing to automate it once. You automate something because you have a strong process that you execute many times over, and you can get that return on investment a lot faster and a lot larger than you would with a smaller scale environment.
No, I love that. From a consulting perspective, we deal with folks all the time, and inevitably every organization that we go into they're on the lower end of the maturity model with how they've defined things. And, you can't really even be in the managed services game without being at the defined level, besides the managed and optimizing of as far as the maturity model goes. So I think it's one of those things where if you're not, if initial, repeatable, defined, managed, and optimizing is the way that it works, and you can't jump. Even though you want to optimize, you can't do that until you've managed, and you can't do that until you've defined. And I think that's one of those things that a lot of people overlook, at the value. Any managed service provider that's coming to you is going to be at the defined level before they can even do their job. And I think that takes you to that manage and optimize that much quicker organizationally. So naturally, it's going to advance you from an optimization perspective. So I just totally let my nerd show, but I think that's a really important aspect of that, is if people are thinking, and remember, we talked about the security aspects, we talked about all of the governance, all of those things have to be in play for managed services to do their job. So there's those other valuable options besides freeing up your own guys to be able to do the strategic things organizationally that you're going to get out of the overall process. But we also have to put a price on all those things. What would it take for your organization to get to those levels? That's a heavy lift. And those are the things that most organizations have a difficult time ingesting, because going from one level of maturity to the next level, that's a lot of stuff that has to go down in an organization. And really nothing extra happens as far as them making money right off the bat. They've got to do it first, and then them having that additional productivity happens after that. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a really heavy lift to get to that. So anyway, I do think the way that you guys are talking about this is awesome. I mean, I'm getting excited. So what about the way that the managed services provider, like the marketplace, is? I mean, there's all kinds of different things I can select in cloud services and things like that. Give me some insights.
Yeah, I would tell you, we see at the gambit of, as I said at the beginning, what managed services is. We manage a technology, we manage a firewall, we manage SD-WAN, specific components, and you're optimizing that technology, and those are valid options for clients to solve. There's also, there's a thought of, well, I throw things out into the public cloud or hyperscaler, I don't need to manage something. Well, that's not completely true, because those workloads have to be managed. Something is going to go wrong with that application, and it'll go bump in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and someone's going to have to go fix it, because Microsoft or Amazon or whomever the hyperscaler is going to fix the application. They're just hosting the platform. The platform's up. They're going, we're good, and they're going to move on. So someone's got to do that. So there's components there that have to be managed, and not only to fix it, but to change it, to patch it, to optimize it. All of those type of operational verbs I typically talk about have to be done. So there's that level. And then there's, the marketplace, there is the other extreme of take it all off my plate, go to a CFO level and say, I can do it for X% less. And it's a complete loss of control for a lot of organizations, is I'm just going to give it all to that. Where we're seeing the marketplace change is really that middle space. We're seeing clients ask about outcomes, and they want that operational partner that can help them mature faster, that can help them bring platform investment into the tools, help accelerate their processes. And there's a little risk on both sides, is that, the investments we sometimes make with our clients is we've got to continue to innovate along either their processes or our processes. And there can be a point where they go, okay, I feel like I've innovated enough. Maybe I can take it on. But then you still have people that you have to do. And in a competitive marketplace, you've got to seriously look at, how do I integrate an offshore option to that? Because not everything can be automated, but there is a lot of things that require human activity or human interaction to do. And so if you're not leveraging those levers around the cost savings of offshore, then you're missing something. And again, outside of larger organizations who can get that scale, it can be a very difficult challenge to leap into something like that. So you got to look at it a people perspective, you got to look at it a process perspective, and you got to look at it a tools perspective. And our clients are asking us to help them elevate all three of those simultaneously, so that it's no longer just a device, and it's no longer I'm letting go of everything. It's how do we mature together as a partnership? And that's where most of our clients are talking to us in the marketplace is those specific outcomes.
That's awesome. And I think, you mentioned some stuff that I think a lot of people, don't even think about themselves, like leveraging those offshore resources. And I mean, that's a heavy lift to get into the business of doing one particular portion of your business to leverage that economy of scale. That's a lot of risk that you're taking organizationally to do that. Mm-hmm. You can't dabble in that. That's something that, like you said, only the biggest organizations can do. But to have that capability and that, be able to realize those benefits as a smaller organization because you're leveraging managed services, it puts you back in the game.
Yep. I would also say in a marketplace, there's different approaches to that. There are some who say, okay, I'm going to follow in the sun. My team goes from this area of the org, this area of the globe, to this area of the globe. And you lose that familiarity, you lose that knowledge as you go across the globe. What we see and what we do, and we see others trying to accomplish, is to take that and flip it on its side and have the team be across all shifts, and to be, we're leveraging the entire global aspect of our operations. But we don't care if there's someone in North America that's on third shift, and in Asia Pac in the first shift for them. It's all about managing that workload and using the resources wherever we can from that scale to leverage it. And that provides a better client. We found that provides a better client experience because you don't lose that knowledge across the country. There's also an aspect of this that we see is operational model. It is easy to lose the client familiarity portion of this. We could easily look at it: a switch is a switch is a switch, a server is a server is a server, a storage array is a storage array. But those pieces have a lot of importance to each individual client, and there are nuances. And to spread it out like peanut butter and trade every firewall and every component the same, you're going to get scale, but you're going to lose that client familiarity. And our clients are asking us, you got to know what that means in my environment. And if you just throw it into, to use a geeky term, the Borg, and you can get that knowledge across, hundreds of clients into a large team. What we've done is we've taken, you got to have a 24/7 team that globally responds to things. You can't have all that expertise up front, but you got to have good engineering and good processes to fix things at 2 o'clock in the morning, and sort of like an ER. The ER is open 24/7. You want to go into the ER and you want to get your legs set. You want to make sure you're back to health as quickly as possible. But then the next morning, they typically say, go talk to your primary physician. So there's a layer below that of the managers, the technical people, the engineers that have that familiarity around this certain clients and go, okay, I know what this means to you. Let's make these changes this way. Let's optimize the environment this way. That is, so you get the best of both worlds, that you get the scale of 24/7, but you also have the familiarity and ownership of how do I manage and optimize my environment specifically for a specific client.
I love that. And you touched on it, something I kind of wanted to highlight, that again, I'm trying to take my old thinking about managed services and change that into the new. But, in the old days, it used to be these, if you want to go with our managed services, okay, rip your stuff out and replace it with these things that we know how to manage. And these days, from what you were just talking about, it sounds like it's more of a bespoke. There's an opportunity for that depending on the client need. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that we're seeing in the marketplace is if you leverage a managed services provider, you're typically I'm going to leverage the client, the provider's people, their process and tools. You're going to get transformation faster. You're going to get the outcomes faster. Absolutely. But that can be a high barrier for clients to sort of climb over culturally within an organization. Am I ready to do that completely? Should I focus on a service or a technology area? Should I focus on a team? All those options are being decided by our clients and such. But there's also aspects of, well, maybe there's different ways to do it. Maybe there is an opportunity to leverage the client's tools or leverage the client's team because they have that knowledge and transform over time. You lower that barrier to entry and go, okay, I'm not ready to just dive into the deep end of the pool. I'm going to walk into the slow end, and I'm going to walk in and I'm going to move the organization to those outcomes over time. And both are valid approaches to how to improve the operations, and that we're trying to tackle constantly all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, folks. Well, Stephen, I wanted to kind of close with you, like from your offering development kind of perspective, where do you feel like folks, where do you think the demand's going? I mean, Phil just talked about a lot of different cool things with bespoke services wrapped around a client's tool sets and their environment. What are your predictions? And everybody's listening.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that there's a willingness to subscribe to sort of the defined offering, and you alluded to that. It's our way or the highway, right? That's the way it has been. And so I think that what we're seeing is that we know we need that. We need some level of consistency in the definition because we have to build things to it. We have to respond to it. We don't alter our SLAs depending on what the client wants. We want to have a standard approach. But what we also want to offer is some level of customization, is how I would describe it, that the client recognizes is a value that they're looking for and they're willing to pay for it. Sure. Right. So we can't give away we'll do it however you like, we'll right. Tweak this, tweak that. Here's the baseline, but yet clients want some level of customization, and that could come with things like resources that maybe are more engaged with their IT teams and ongoing discussions or in future planning, things of that nature. And we're seeing those kind of higher end premier offerings where we're engaged on a regular basis, saying we're not sending them a report. That's what. Well, here's a capacity report. Go read it. Here's your incidents and what here's a report. Go read it. We want to thoughtfully provide analysis and engagement with the client to say, here's what we're seeing. We've done the analysis for you. Here's where we think you're going. Here's what you should be looking for. Your capacity is growing at this amount. We need to start planning for this. So you start to really bring value at a level that has nothing to do with, well, did you pick up the phone? How fast did you respond to the incident? You are engaged at a completely different level. And that's really where we are heading and where our clients want us to go.
I love that. I think that is the big differentiator. I mean, just not so just some people that are like, well, nothing happened. Here's that report that,
Right.
over the quarter kind of thing. Somebody that's going to engage and help that organization become better and understanding their goals and where they want to go. That is definitely a game changer as far as the managed services game goes. Well, gents, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad you got your mic fixed, Phil. That was awesome. But no, you guys rock. I really appreciate that. And for those of you out there that want to know more about what Phil and Stephen were talking about, we've got a lot of materials up on insightcdct.com. And we hope you'll join us next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.